Hi, Jesse, and welcome. I am so glad you are here.
Thank you, Terry. It's great to be here.
Yes. So let's dive in to, I wanted to talk to you today about Russian tempering, but before we get into that, how about, could you share with us who you are and a little bit of background of what you do?
Yeah, my name is Jesse Steinberg, and I am a um, Buteyko student for 12 years. I am a Buteyko teacher for about 12 years. I'm also a chiropractor. I'm a Reiki master. I'm a father, a husband. I live in Rhode Island, and I work with a lot of students currently, teaching them the Buteyko method. And Russian tempering, of course, is this like really beautiful contribution to how we can not only take the method to kind of a fuller, like a fuller delivery of the promise of the method of this like radiant health and moving us towards awakening. But it's also just like a really fun way to engage with our biology and with nature. And of course, Sasha has like such a beautiful and unique and historical perspective and can deliver such like a beautiful testimonial of what's possible and the cultural background and the way that Buteyko kind of took it and helped people to understand how to apply it and when to apply it. And so, of course, she's presented us with this course, which it's funny, even after all these years, like I'm constantly learning from Sasha and from her, like the level of integrity and enthusiasm and research and kind of authentic presentation of these ideas. So I was really excited to view the course and to share it with a lot of my students. And yeah, it's a really beautiful addition to the knowledge base and to the teaching that is offered at Breathing Center. You know, it's one thing for me to talk about this in my own somewhat limited experience, maybe more than most, but I only have so much experience with it in my life. But for Sasha to talk about decades of experience and the kind of intimate cultural knowledge of its coming to be in Russia and really throughout the world, but it's just like such a treasure box of information that she's provided in the course. So I was just super excited to watch it and to learn from it, and even more excited now to jump in the freezing ocean in January and to roll around in the snow and to do all the fun things. Like she said, it's actually just incredibly joyful once you get into it. It just really makes you feel so incredibly alive and joyful. And so I hope that everybody watches it and feels that same like childlike sense of like, really, I'm allowed to, roll around in the snow or do all these sorts of things if I kind of work up to it. Because ultimately it's really just getting towards a childlike joy and a tremendous like life force energy in your body. And just, yeah, it's really lovely. So it's a really blessing. And I'm so grateful that we have this course now.
Yes. So how did you first begin? What did that look like, that process of first starting out that practice?
Yeah. I think the first thing is like I was a student in 2009, and this idea that it would be helpful to go barefoot, and I may or may not have been already experimenting with the Vibram Five Fingers, but I decided thereabouts that I was going to go barefoot a lot more often. And it was amazing when I first started going barefoot because my feet were like baby feet, but they were, like they were so sensitive and so fragile after however many years in shoes. And it just was so funny how they could not deal with any kind of diverse surfaces or diverse temperatures. And, over the years, I've just been really insistent about being barefoot as much as possible. And one of the great things about moving from California to Rhode Island and to a more rural area is that I can be barefoot all the time, except for probably minutes a week when I have to go into a business. I can basically be barefoot. I can be barefoot in my office as a chiropractor. I can be barefoot when I'm driving. I can be barefoot when I'm scraping off the cars, after it snowed. Like, I can be barefoot my entire life, basically. And so after 10 years, the body changes when you do these practices, and my feet have changed dramatically to be able to tolerate and enjoy these different temperatures. And so I think the first thing was taking my shoes off and just leaving them off. And now it's like I'm very hard pressed to actually put shoes on. And when I have to put something on, when it's like freezing cold in the winter, I'll put on sandals. And then if I'm going to be outside for an extended period of time, then I'll put on like very light shoes. But it is really amazing how the body adapts to it, and all the while just like imbues the body with energy and vitality. And yeah, so it's really fun, and I love sharing it with. And it's a sight too, because everybody, oh, the barefoot chiropractor, oh, the barefoot breathing specialist, oh, Jesse's always barefoot. It becomes a kind of joyful way to share this information. And of course, there's an intuitive knowing and an innate sense when someone does it. They're like, oh, this is awesome. Thank you so much for sharing this with me. This is spectacular.
So I think that, when you look at it from a beginner's lens, and there's people who are looking at this and they see somebody take their shoes off and go barefoot, let's just kind of look at the anatomy of that situation. So you do this, and from the outside standpoint, it really doesn't look like that big of a deal, right? Like, oh, you took your shoes off and now you're connecting to the ground. What do you think happens in those initial moments for people? What are the gifts that people experience as they are first connecting and doing something that seems so simple, like taking your shoes off and connecting to the ground and the dirt? What do you think happens in those moments?
Yeah, that's a great question. I often, when I share this, I say things like, for all of human history, or most of human history, like, we've been very connected to the earth, to, being barefoot, being in the earth, being amongst the elements. It was absolutely the only way that we ever lived up until relatively recently. And of course, when we're children, like, most people have such fond memories, adults, of being children and running around barefoot and running around all summer and just swimming in a lake or whatever it is, or at the beach. So there is a way, I think, that it really feels like returning home to your innate joyful state, to your childhood, to something that just feels innately natural without having to describe. It's like, this is going to feel really natural. Like, no, it does feel really natural. There's like a big part of our neurology and of our nervous system that just gets really giddy when we do these things that are just like hardwired into our biology and feel so good, and like, help us to feel so free. So when a person takes their shoes off for the first time, to me, it's like every cell in their body is just like smiling and like, thank you, and like, how sweet, and I remember now, and thank you. To me, that's really like what it's all about.
So did you have any hurdles along the way? Did you experience any roadblocks or hurdles or things that you've experienced in here that you'd like to share with people?
No, I haven't. But I will say that, I grew up like, fair skinned, like, ginger hair, very light skin, freckles. Like, my mother was like, don't go outside without sunscreen. Always wear your sunglasses. Like, the sun is dangerous for you. Don't let yourself get too cold. Like, I was really scared of the cold, having, had asthma throughout my life. And I was, I couldn't tolerate the sun. I had like terrible sunburns in my life. Don't go barefoot. You might step on a nail and get tetanus and all, that's like the conditioning that I grew up in. And then, of course, once you get introduced to it, once you start doing it, and I have like, less than most need to be normal. So I was like, cool, this is like another weird thing that I can do. But it's really like such a lovely thing. And So I didn't encounter a lot of roadblocks, but I will say it's definitely a process. Like you don't just, you say, oh, I'm going to do this. And now, I live in Rhode Island. Now I'm going to like jump in the ocean in January or February when the ocean is the coldest. Like you can't just jump into it in that way. And yet it's important to realize that like the body has, hardwired within the body is this like dormant capacity for interacting with the elements in this constructive way. Like we're built for it. So, we're not taught that when we're children necessarily, or as we grow up, but like our body is made for this. And so it's really just like a gentle, compassionate, gradual reminder of what our body is made to do, to heat itself when it's cold, to encounter different surfaces, temperatures, sunlight, all these things. So it's really cool then that as the breathing improves and as the metabolics and chemistry improves and the nervous system and all the systems around that start to improve, that you can actually get stronger as you do it. So you watch your body be able to tolerate, some minutes of sunlight and then an hour of sunlight and then hours of sunlight, or you can go barefoot a little bit and then you can go for minutes and hours. And so, it becomes, for me, like a really fun process of like, oh my God, my body is so capable and so resilient. And just to get to celebrate that resilience and to witness and demonstrate that resilience, it's cool because in many cases it's getting lost or forgotten. So it's really fun to wake it up and to share that with other people.
So what do you think happens to somebody's nervous system over time when they're not connecting to nature and they're not connecting to themselves?
Yeah. What is happening to someone's nervous system when they're not connecting to nature and to themselves in that way? The nervous system gets weakened. It gets, it becomes more sympathetic dominant. There's the associated stress chemistries that get more kind of hypersensitive. So we become more fragile on a neurological level, and we can't handle stress in nearly the same way. And so one of the real beauties of these practices is the strengthening of stress resilience, which is really important in our society because life is in many ways getting more overwhelming to our nervous systems. And so this is an antidote to stress, and it's an enormously helpful practice that we can do to enhance our stress resilience. And for that reason, it's never been more important to engage in tempering.
Mm-hmm. I also think, when you first start to work with a practitioner like yourself or take a course and get immersed and you get some guidance, after that, it becomes this self-prescription, I think, and it gives people freedom.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Would you like to share with us your favorite element that you like to work with, play with?
Yeah. I love, I have like more of a tan now than I've ever had in my life. And so that's really fun. But I would say that I love being barefoot. It's like such a thing now where I'm barefoot all the time, regardless of the weather. And people are like, wow, I'm like barefoot or in sandals when it's like 5 degrees outside or 10 degrees outside, or clearing the cars off, after a snowstorm in my bare feet. So I really love that. I think that I feel that the cold is like the master teacher in a way. And so the cold is really the element to make friends with. I mean, all the other things, the air and the dirt and pollen and the sun. And, of course, like the sun is definitely a big one. And, I've learned a lot, and I've, tried a lot of things in terms of sunlight, and that's really fun. But it feels like the cold is really like where very deep mastery lies, because the cold brings you into this like profound stillness, right? After you get over the shock of the cold, it actually brings you to this like really truly profound, deep inner stillness. And therefore I think that it's really like in many ways, like the most powerful and deep teacher. So yeah, that's what I would share.
So you have been a teacher for quite some time over the years. Is there anything, and maybe it's your own practice, but is there anything that you witnessed that you would like to share with us? Somebody's experience with Russian tempering, some breakthrough that they've had, or just something amazing that you've been able to witness that you could share with us?
Well, I think it's always really joyful to see there's this like progressive relationship with the cold, for example, where initially it's provokes fear, right? Because it's an elemental stress, and it provokes fear and tension and panic and all these things. But later it provokes a feeling of strength, of calm, and of like hardiness. And so it's really cool when someone, you know, starts out and they say, I can't handle the cold at all. I say, I couldn't either. And they say, but now, like, you know, I've heard people say like, and if you asked me to stop taking a cold shower, I wouldn't even do it. You know, because it's like it's becomes so a part of their routine and so a part of their like joy and their sense of health and hardiness and robustness that they're like, I'm never doing that. I could stop all this other stuff you've shared with me, but I am never gonna stop jumping into a straight cold shower. And I'm like, that's awesome. So that kind of demonstrates how like once you actually get into it, it's just like you wouldn't ever want to give it up, you know. And it just becomes like such like a empowering practice and a personal thing that it's like so I guess that's what lights me up the most, when someone's like, you couldn't even get me to stop this if you tried. Like, I love jumping in a cold shower, rolling around in the snow. Like, I love it, love it, love it. I'm like, that's awesome, because now they're hooked into their joy, and that becomes the like self-empowerment and you know, amazing, beautiful thing.
That is so awesome. So do you have any advice you'd like to share with anybody that is listening that is new to Russian tempering and they're not sure if they want to start it? Any advice for those people?
Yes. The advice would be go for it. You have dormant capacities in your body. Your body is ready and waiting to awaken the capacities to withstand, and not only withstand, but to get stronger as a result of exposure to the elements. So your body is like, please let me show you how strong and capable I am, and how amazing you will feel. And all this like chemistry and neurochemistry is just going to start cascading through your system. So I would say, go for it, go slow, but really like hook into the joy of it. It's so joyful when you start doing it. So have fun. It's a blast. Life is amazing, and just go for it.
Yes, that is perfect. Perfectly said. So do you have anything else you would like to share with us today?
Sure. As someone who was taught to be afraid, I've literally and explicitly taught to be afraid of all of these elements of nature, from the sunlight to the cold to going barefoot. It really is a path of liberation to start to reclaim the innate like pleasure of being outside, of getting the sunlight on your skin, of going barefoot in the grass, of these like beautiful textures that the earth is offering up, and of swimming in cold water and doing all sorts of things and just engaging in nature. And like once you get there, like you don't need any, as soon as you just kind of dip your toe in, you know, after you get over the initial shock of it, both literally and kind of metaphorically, like then you can't be stopped. Then it's just like, you know, it just, you want to just get all your friends together and you just want to try it. So I'd say go for it, go slow, and just just find the joy in it. And once you do, you'll be unstoppable. And then invite me to temper with you. I can't wait. We'll temper and we'll travel. So yeah, I can't wait.
I love it. I love your energy. I just love it. You are literally like a joy spreader. I don't even know, is that a word? I don't even know if that's a word, but that's what you are. You're a joy spreader. And I just love it. I appreciate you. I appreciate your time today. Thank you so much for sharing space with us. And yes, definitely, people need to seek you out, and anywhere in the country.
Yes. Temper will travel.
Yes, perfect. Thank you, Jesse.
Cool. Thank you so much, Terry. What a pleasure. Have a wonderful day.